want war. Give them war. Humanity never deserved power.
I've been wanting to do an updated Destiny 2 review for a while now, but thought I would wait until the game had been out for 6 months and for the March update to drop, which includes changes to the sandbox. For anyone that follows me on Twitter or anywhere else, they would know that I am a big Destiny fan with hundreds and hundreds of hours invested in both games. I wanted to do a video saying what Destiny 2 does so well and what it does so very wrong. The problems the game is facing is no secret, and I liken Bungie to the Titanic, the unsinkable ship. If Bungie don't turn this game around and focus on the consumer first, then they could be about to hit their own iceberg. They've already been scraping it and the water is coming in. So Bungie really need to right their wrongs with Destiny 2, or the work you have already put into Destiny 3 will be for nothing, as the average gamers have already turned away and your hardcore Destiny fans are leaving in large numbers. The chances of them being disappointed for a third time is unlikely. Let's get the things we already know out of the way and which have been there since Destiny 1. I don't think anyone would argue with the fact that Destiny 2 is one damn looking fine game. Bungie has always excelled with their design and art teams, and this hasn't changed at all with this sequel and the world which has been created. The weapons and armor have a great amount of detail in them, and although some are reskins, they still may have an interesting design or feature that make them memorable. Sound within the game has always been a strong point of Bungie games, and especially Destiny in recent years, with the music fitting in perfectly with the action. The various themes throughout the game are just a joy to listen to, and they further enhance the design and artwork. The various types of weapons franchise in the past is the feeling the player gets when firing a weapon. Whether it's a pulse rifle, scout rifle, rocket launcher, and everything else, the gunplay has always felt so satisfying and is a large factor as to why I, and others, have played so much of the franchise over the years. Now, the basics are out of the way, let's take a look whether the latest additions to the game are worthy of players coming back, or new players picking up the game. This review will focus on the Crucible PvP more, as these new changes don't come with an expansion or content drop, so the game is mostly similar in terms of content. With the latest March update of 1.1.4, Bungie is trying to bring the feeling back that players had when playing the first game, especially in the PvP, trying to make the player feel super powerful and bringing the fun back. Destiny 1 was never that balanced in PvP, something I've been critical of in the past and still am, but it was still fun even with these issues. A large majority of long-time fans have felt that Destiny 2, whilst bringing more balance to the game, the fun has been stripped away at the same time. From team shooting, smaller player counts in matches, minimal game modes, and the difference in weapons between the two games, which I'll talk about soon, Destiny 2 should have taken the first game's competitive play to a different level. Instead, it drove players away after only a short time. With the recent March update to the game has become faster in PvP, something many players wanted. It isn't quite at the speed of the first game, but it is faster, and with the increased abilities at the same time, now the whole game feels like there is more going on in a match. Weapons have been buffed so they feel more powerful as well. The Vigilance Wing, for example, is an even better weapon since the update, but pulse rifles tend to have a better feeling about them. Hand cannons have always had a tough time on console, as many players felt they didn't handle as well when compared to the PC. But now their hand cannons are a much more viable option when playing competitively. Rumble has also been added back into Destiny 2, a competitive mode that was in Destiny 1, but there are some issues with the game mode. With 8 players, it's a couple of players too much, as the maps don't cater for this many players in a single map. With this amount of players, it makes the spawns completely broken, as players can be spawn killed or you kill someone only for them to respawn right near you. This game mode was never going to work by implementing it as they have. Simply bringing Rumble back, contrary to what many players believe, wasn't going to fix the problems with Destiny 2 multiplayer on its own. These sandbox changes are a welcome addition to the game And it is a start to Bungie rectifying the problems associated with the game, so they should be commended for it. These sandbox changes do take too long to introduce into the game though, as these changes now really were needed months ago when players were already complaining so loudly. But because of the time it takes to introduce them into a build of the game, playtest the results, and also how they fit into all the other systems in the game, players leave the game as they feel they aren't being heard or couldn't be bothered waiting for the changes to come into effect. The release of the Curse of Osiris expansion didn't help either, as it was average at best, showing players that nothing had changed from the base game. But there are other problems that plague Destiny 2, and one that will probably never be rectified is that of random rolls on weapons. This issue also ties in with the loot system and the willingness of players to grind in the game. With no random rolls on weapons, guns are the same apart from the colour. Having random rolls on weapons meant players would grind certain events in the chance that they would receive the God roll. Often players would never get it, but it made players want to play the content repeatedly because there was always an incentive to do so. With the removal of these random rolls in the sequel, once a player earns a weapon, then there is really no need to have duplicates of it, as they are all exactly the same. With not needing to grind, then the closest thing Bungie could do to introduce something to replace it would be an enormous loot table, full of weapons and armour, but this is unrealistic, and the amount of reskins would be far too many to be worth collecting. And this last point brings me to the problem of loot in Destiny 2. These games not only require loot worthy of the grind and a player's time, but they also need to have that special something that goes beyond simply having a good gun. Destiny 1 had weapons people desired, from the Grasp of Malik, Thorn, The Last Word, Gjallarhorn, Hawkmoon, and so many others. These were just some of the weapons that people wanted so much, and they did the grind for dozens, hundreds, and thousands of hours to get them. In contrast to this, Destiny 2's weapons aren't as revered as they are easy to get. Bungie seems to give them out like participation awards at school. By giving them out so easily without players needing to put in the effort, it makes them feel less special, and it never feels like you really earned it. This is a huge fundamental change from the first game, and even though it comes with advantages, it does impact the very thing as to why so many stuck with the first game for so long, and that's the grind. Destiny 2 has always had a pretty good amount of PvE content to keep playing the game, but again, it's a loot problem, with many of these activities such as lost sectors and adventures not being worthy of a player's time, as the loot gained from them is minimal. So, should you pick up Destiny 2? I would always tell someone to try a game first before making their opinion on it, and you will get some very enjoyable hours from the game, even if it is just to play the campaign for something to do. It is very much a game you must try, as some people can get hooked on it, and for others, it's just another game. My advice would be give it a try and see what you think of it, especially now that it goes on sale regularly. So, have you come back to Destiny 2 since the March update, and will you be sticking with it? What other changes do you feel Bungie need to make to get this game right for both PvP and PvE? Let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more gaming content. This is Max Power, and I'll see you on the next video.